Hi, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm gonna discuss ways of winning material. Remember that your pieces have different points, so these ways they're gonna allow you to win material. We have terms like your pin, your fork, and skews, right? But before I proceed, I just want to apologize since I've added math concepts in the channel. Bear with me, please. So I would like to proceed now about one of the terms called fork. Fork is when one piece it is pointing at two or three other pieces, right? And it's gonna result in you gaining more points. So how am I going to do that? Let me show you one example of a fork. 1, 2, 3. That's how my knife moves. But notice that it is pointing at my king and my rook as well. So I'm gonna say check, and unfortunately he can't move the rook. He has to move the king since he is under check. So he's gonna move, and now that's gonna allow me to take the rook, which has 5 points, and it's gonna take how many points? 3 points. So now I have 2 more points than him since I took 5 and he took 3. So in chess we say that I am exchange up, right? Not a piece up. Those are two different terms. So this is an exchange up. That's what I covered. This is what I call a fork. It appears in many ways. I can show you another one scenario of a fork. Another scenario. Take for instance, we have a piece here, and I have my bishop here. It is my turn to play. So check what I'm gonna do. When I take this pawn here, I took a pawn, I said check, but then I have my rook there. So that's a fork. I have his rook there. So he has to move here first before he can run. But his wish is to run, but he can't since he's under check. So I'm gonna take. So I've gained 5 points for free. So this is not an exchange up, but it's just piece up. Since I got a whole piece for nothing. So this is a piece up, but not exchange up. So that's another example of a fork. Remember, a fork has to be valuable every time. You must have more points. So let me show you another example. So let's say my opponent has a piece here, and I have my queen here, right? And it is my turn to play. So me coming here, it doesn't count as a fork, even though I am pointing at 1, 2, 3 pieces. It doesn't count as a fork. Reason being, I want me taking any of these pieces, it doesn't come valuable since I'm gonna be exchanged down. Do you get that? So a fork, it is normally called a fork when it is valuable, when you gain something out of it, right? So that was a fork. So now I'm gonna cover what we call a pin, right? So pin is when I am threatening a piece which cannot move. Well, it can, but if it moves, it's gonna expose a more valuable piece. So in a sense that if you move that piece, I'm gonna take your bigger piece. Here's an example here. So here in this position, I'm just gonna show you a rough position. It might not look correct. It's just for demonstration, right? So here I'm having this piece here. This is my position, right? Just a rough position. I say this knight is pinned by this bishop. When I moved my bishop from here to here, I actually pinned this knight, in a sense that this knight cannot move. Well, it can, but it's gonna expose a more valuable piece. So it is actually good to pin pieces since to make them inactive, because now he can't move this piece. If he does, I'm gonna chop here a 9 points, and he's gonna get 3 points. So he's gonna be exchanged down, I'm gonna be exchanged up. Do you get how? Do you see how I use these terms of exchange up and piece up? So that was the thing. That was your pin. So now pins don't only work with valuable pieces, but they also work with kings. Let's take for instance the king was here. This knight is pinned as well because it can't move this one totally, because if it moves, it exposes the king to this piece, so it's gonna be a check. so you can't move this knight. So we say the knight is pinned. Are we good with that? So now I'm gonna cover what we call a skew. Skew is more like a reverse of a pin. Since a pin, I am directing a less valuable piece, which is protecting a more valuable piece. So if I remove this less valuable piece, I'm gonna get this piece, right? But a skew, it is in reverse, right? Here's an example of skew position, right? I am pointing at this queen. This queen has to move, because if I chop it, I'm gonna get 9 points. But then he's gonna move the queen, protect the queen, and at least now I will take a less valuable piece compared to the queen. So that's a skew. It's a reverse of a pin, right? So since now I've covered these 3 concepts, I'm gonna show you them in games, right? I'm gonna show you them in games, where they apply and stuff. But those games, they're gonna be traps. They're gonna be about traps. The first one is going to be called a fright lever attack. It starts like this: e4, which is natural, controlling the center; e5, which is natural, controlling the center. Develop your pieces, pointing at this pawn. He's gonna protect here. Therefore, I'm gonna develop my bishop as Italian opening, pointing here, and wanting to castle, protect my king. He's gonna do a natural thing to develop his or her own piece, right? But from here, you remember when I introduced Italian opening, I was saying that it is preparing for an attack. So with fright lever attack, I'm gonna attack immediately here, taking into advantage that my bishop is pointing there. So now I'm gonna add another piece to attack there, which is my knight, right? So now my opponent, if he is not paying attention here, if let's say he plays this move, which maybe might be natural to get rid of my knight to go back, I'm gonna take here. Me taking here, it is a fork, because I am pointing at 2 valuable pieces using a knight. So it's gonna protect the queen, and I'm gonna take the knight. I'm gonna take the rook. So I'm gonna win a whole piece, right? So let's go back a bit. So in this game, people, they normally play here to protect. Now I can't take. Since if I'm gonna take here, my bishop won't be available to protect my knight. So white takes here, black takes here. It's natural since the queen is protecting. So knight is gonna take here. The knight is gonna take here, right? That's what we call the fright lever attack. After taking, you play your queen here. The queen is now pointing at 2 pieces. This is a fork now, kind of way. It depends with the black response. So I'm saying check, right? In this check, the king can go back and go to any other square, right? But the interesting part is that this knight is pinned. You see now, these concepts are coming into one game. This knight is pinned in a sense that it cannot block this check, because it is exposing the king to another check, right? So if you come here, now you can take your piece back, the piece that you gambled here. You can take your piece back, right? But then there is another variation of the king coming here. If the king comes here, it's gonna be another part which is gonna be interesting, but I won't cover it since it's going to be a bit deep. White is going to capitalize on the fact that the king is exposed and it's kind of like too close, right? So I won't analyze that. Since I'm on the same page of your fright lever attack, I'm going to cover another game quick of fright lever attack. Another interesting variation which people use to take people pieces. So let me show you. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4. The knight comes here, right? So since I'm here, what's gonna happen is that, take for instance now, my opponent is not afraid of me. He does not block or do anything. He brings the knight here. the bishop here. This is an interesting variation which has a trap in it. So if I take here, which is natural, forking these two pieces, the bishop can take here. It's a check, right? Well, it is natural to take a whole free piece. You take this piece. Now black is gonna attack you. It's gonna say capture the knight here, check, right? I find it natural for my opponent to come here or here or here, right? Let's take for instance, if you come here while the game is kind of drawn. If he comes here, you're gonna further attack. You're going to say queen to h4, check, right? It is not a good idea to come here. There's gonna be a checkmate in about 3 or 4 moves, right? Let me show you quick check. Maybe check here. See, it's gonna happen along the way, along the lines. Okay, so let's say you come here, then I say check. The pawn can be pushed to block, but that's where the interesting part gets in. This pawn is what? It is pinned because black can take here. If you take, you're exposing a whole piece, a rook 5 points, which is gonna be taken. Do you see that? So I know it's hard to memorize these games, but it's good to know them since you can use them against your opponent to trap them. Let me show you another trap quick, which covers those concepts of pin, skews, and fork. So the one that I'm gonna cover now is gonna be of Petrov defense. It's gonna be Petrov. Should I do Philidor? Let me do Petrov. E4, E5, knight F3, knight F6, right? It is natural to take here since it is not protected. After taking, the trap gets interesting. Black plays here, right? Since I have a pawn, I'm gonna take here, right? So it is more natural to capture with this piece to open up for your bishop, right? But then white here realizes that his pawn is not protected. So what does he do? He protects the pawn with another pawn, right? And now black develops his own bishop because he wants to castle. It looks natural. But then white is tempted to pin this piece. He's going to pin it here. So now this knight is a pinned piece. But now pinned pieces, they form part of the traps, in a sense whereby you think I can't move this knight, but I'm gonna move it to trap you. So now the knight takes here. It is so natural to take this queen. So white takes this queen. You think you're winning because you have material, but that's part of the trap, right? So black's gonna continue and say check. Which squares do we have? We can't take since it's protected. Can we come here? No, there's a knight. We only have this square. So I took his or her queen, but he's gonna win the whole game by saying checkmate. Do you see that? So it was a trap of a pin. So this game is a checkmate since I can't come here, I can't come here, I can't come here. Right? Awesome. And now I'm going to do another trap now, which is gonna be of the one that I did was Petrov defense. Now I'm gonna do a trap of Philidor defense. I feel like I'm confusing you when I say Philidor and all these names. In chess, they have names. There are a few moves that you make by white, they are called openings. The one that you make by black are called defense, right? So now here we're gonna play a game of Philidor defense. I can say opening, right? It starts with E4, E5, it's natural, controlling the center. Knight to F3, threatening his or her pawn. But then here in this position, he chooses to defend with the pawn and play D6, the pawn to D6. There are notations here, right? D6, pawn to D6. Since I'm an Italian player, I'm just gonna continue and say bishop to C4, right? But then here blacks decide to continue with pinning me. which is natural to pin your opponent, right? So this knight is pinned according to him. Yes, it is pinned, but it is part of the trap. Then white continues and play knight to c3, just developing my pieces, right? Maybe black here realizes that his bishop doesn't have much movement here. He's gonna play g6 with the hope that he's gonna fianchet, play the bishop here. When you play the bishop in this manner, when you put it in this manner between these three pawns, we call it a fianchetto, right? Fianchet. So he's playing g6 to fianchet in a later stage, right? So the traps now begin here. Black, in his mind, he believes that this knight is trapped. He is so sure that whenever I move this knight, he's gonna take my queen, right? But then I'm gonna play to his expectations to trap him. So I take this pawn here. It is so natural to take here. He has 9 points, but that's where the trap gets in. I'm gonna take here and say check. Remember, when it's check, we do 3 things. Can you run? Okay, yes, you can run, but let's confirm with others. Can I block? No, I can't block. I can't put a piece here. Can you capture? No, you can't capture. Kings can't capture pieces which are protected. So now we go to our last solution, which is running. After running here, there's a checkmate. Can you find it quick? There is it. Knight to d5, which is a checkmate. But I'm gonna say check first and see if he can do anything. Can he run? No, he can't. This square is protected by this one. This one is protected by this one. This square is also protected, and that one is protected. So running is not an option. Can he block? No way, you can't block knights. Like, you don't block knights if you're under check. Can we capture this knight? No, this knight is not threatened by anything. So this thing is a checkmate. So this is what I wanted to cover, to show you ways of winning material, of which are your fork, your pin and skew, right? But then again, I wanted to emphasize on them that this concept that you can be trapped using them. I showed you a couple of games, your fright liver attack, your Philidor game, the Petrov game. Alright, so I think this is where I'll close. Thank you for watching my game. Please don't forget to subscribe. Enjoy.